For people who are tuning in, I am talking to Dronetek. Apparently, he's been making videos since 2009, various content. Found him on the Hippy Dippy podcast, and he agreed to talk to me. The subject that I brought up was immigration, so we'll be talking about that, but also probably get into some other things. I'm gonna let him do an introduction, but super excited for this because this is the first time I've actually had a conservative content creator talk to me on stream. So this is an exciting time for me.
Liberal Cluck, what's up, buddy?
Not a
You
whole
are live.
lot. Oh, awesome, fantastic. You are also live on my channel, so
Sweet.
we can do introductions, I guess. Introduce each other.
Yeah, go for it. Who are you? Tell us about your channel, why you're here, all that good stuff.
So I am Liberal Cluck. I do politics and gaming streaming, mostly politics. I'm not a very good gamer. On YouTube and Twitch, the main focus around my streaming channel is to try and have productive conversations around politics, mostly with people of the opposite that disagree with me, because it's not productive just agreeing with each other and circle jerking in that way.
It's not fun either.
It's not. It's boring to watch. It's boring to do. So yeah, I seek out a lot of conservatives. I started my channel, pretty much going onto like conservative Reddit and finding some people from there, and I found a lot of great people to have conversations with, and they've stuck around my community. They're the most active ones, despite being like in the minority as terms of numbers. They're the most active ones in my Discord, so that's kind of cool. Um, yeah, and I am here today because I saw you on the Hippy Dippy podcast recently, and you said some stuff that, for lack of better words, triggered me just a bit. And it wasn't necessarily just you. It was because I was dealing with a lot of people saying the same thing. Well, I say dealing with as if I don't do this as a hobby, but it's my hobby. But I was talking to people on Twitter that were saying kind of the same things, and yeah, I kind of try to jump on the opportunity to be able to have this conversation with somebody who is I'm assuming you're more knowledgeable than your average Twitter person, and over voice chat too, which is important because having political conversations on Twitter is toxic. Um,
It is.
yeah. You want to introduce yourself to what little audience I may have?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't have a much bigger audience and I apologize for that. I screwed up. I didn't schedule it correctly. I think I put it on I think it's scheduled for tomorrow or
Oof.
something because it's not showing, and so my viewers don't really know about it. But I think they'll start to trickle in here, and usually I can get around 150 people or so. So we'll see if that happens. Um, my channel is basically just about media bias. I try to inject a little humor into it. I know that's kind of the flavor du jour these days, but I got into this way back in like 2004, maybe earlier than that, even early 2000 even. And I've been really hooked on it ever since. I saw how the media was at the beginning of Bush, and then how it kind of evolved, and then going into the Obama administration, how they treated that administration, and that kind of fueled my desire to tell people basically to turn off your TVs because the media is lying to you on a regular basis. And I'm not, you might call me a conservative or a right winger, which I guess I am by today's standards, but 2 decades ago I was a liberal. So I don't know. Uh, Basically the only thing I really care about is, I don't care about what gay people do in their homes. I don't care about gay marriage. I don't care about things like that. I care about the standards that our mass media basically enforces across the country now, even like normal citizens, compared to the standards they hold their party to. And I say their party because the vast majority of media are Democrats, and we can get into that at some point if you want to. But yeah, that's pretty much it. I get on and I rant just about every day. I try to stay consistent daily about the media, and I'll usually pick a story and focus on that. And then occasionally I do these live streams where we talk about topics like this. I've been wanting to get some discourse in here because, frankly, most of the people in my Discord are like-minded, right? And we have
Yeah.
these Discord chat streams, but it's like it's just preaching to the choir essentially. So yeah, I wanted to do more things like this. That's why I jumped on it when you offered. And speaking of jumping, we jumped up to 20 viewers, so hopefully it'll get better.
Oh, fantastic. I'm not. So, like, I'm glad that we're gonna have people watching, but I am not under any impression that I'm going to be getting any more viewership from your audience because I feel like, unless, I mean, maybe that's unfair. Maybe your audience is interested in seeing people that disagree with them,
I
but
think you'd be surprised.
yeah. Well, I mean, the conservatives that I have in my community have really surprised me in a lot of ways. So, yeah. So maybe I'm just being a little bit of a bigot. Um,
Oh no, I could definitely see where you might get that idea because I mean, politics. It's a lot like professional sports for a lot of people, and they get really like they feel like if you challenge the things that they believe, they take that personally. And I'm not saying everybody. I actually find very few people that are like really hardcore like that. Personally, me, if you can prove me wrong or what I believe, I am completely open to that because I don't want to be believing a bunch of BS. Just like anybody.
yeah. Okay, so
So
I wanted to start out talking to you because this is the thing that I saw on the Hippy Dippy that really got me interested in talking to you. Immigration, and mainly
right,
from
right,
the purview of Biden, Obama, and Trump, and what they're doing around immigration. I am not going to subscribe. Is that the word? Subscribe? I don't think that's the word. I'm not going to put any words in your mouth about what you may
right. That's
believe.
correct.
I'm going to give you a chance to explain your position. Um, if you would like, I can explain to you where my problems lies, and maybe you can have a chance to respond to that.
Okay, sounds good to me.
So on the Hippy Dippy podcast that you were on, the topic of kids in cages came up, and you seemingly had the take that what Obama is doing, was doing at the border, and what Biden is doing at the border, is the same as what Trump is doing at the border. And if you
Was doing.
or was doing, yeah. And I guess if you look at just the idea that kids are in cages, at some point, you can make that argument, but there are so many differences that we can go through that in my opinion just makes what Trump was doing so much worse. Not that I would defend Obama for how he handled everything, and Biden, I'm still kind of like a let's wait and see what happens. I think he's on a good trajectory, but yeah, I'm not going to defend
Okay.
Obama, but I think that what he did was way better than what Trump did.
I mean, so I guess my question would be where, like, what do you think is so different? So I understand that when it came to Trump, they had a no tolerance policy. So basically, anybody who came across the border that was illegally over the border and was apprehended, they were put through the system. They were separated, not based on Trump's policy, but because they were going to be held longer than 72 hours because of the Flores decision, they had to be separated. But then they ended up being held longer because they were going through this process. Now you can, you know, are we agreeing on that?
Uh, hold on. The thing is that
I mean,
so
that's essentially the difference is that the kids were held longer under Trump.
well, they were also just immediately separated under Trump, which didn't happen underneath Obama. Like
Well, it happened immediately because they already knew they were going to be there longer than 72 hours.
yeah.
Right.
So it sounds to me like you're putting blame on the separation on the Flores decision. Would that be accurate or?
Right. Like it wasn't like I mean, you can say that Trump and I think there is even transcripts or something where they said, "Oh, this is a good deterrent that we're
Mhm.
holding them separately." And I pointed out during the Hippy Dippy live stream that's the whole reason the Flores decision came into play in the first place was that all these groups were immigration groups were coming in saying, you're keeping the kids in prison in these cages, however you want to say it, with their parents as a deterrent, because we don't want these kids in these horrible prison conditions, but you're keeping them there with the parents. So they said, okay, we're going to separate them. So
Yeah,
that's how that happened. And
I
then because Trump was prosecuting, or they were, going through the legal process with each one, it was taking longer, and thus the kids were there longer.
yeah. So the thing is that the Flores decision was a decision that happened, I believe, under the Clinton administration,
Clinton,
correct?
right?
Yeah.
That's correct. Right.
Which means that Bush and Obama had to abide by the Flores rules, and they
Correct.
didn't have to separate children
Well,
the
they
way that.
did. No, they did. They were absolutely separating them. But I think what happened in those cases was essentially the after the 72-hour period, they essentially just let them into the country. Is what happened.
Well, yeah, you're talking about catch and release, which is an issue, a thing that I do want to touch on. But you say they separated children from their parents. They didn't do it by policy when there was no suspicion of any type of like neglect, abuse, or these people not being their parents. It wasn't like that where it was like that under Trump.
Children were absolutely 100% separated from their parents, dude. And it's been going on for. That's one of the things I wanted to find here. I told you about earlier. And you might know who I'm talking about. You might be able to help me out here since you really know a lot about this topic. There's a woman. Her name, I think, is Maria something. She's she as a professional in all of this. She's a regular on MSNBC. She was on with Stephanie Rule, and they were talking about this back when this was going on. I'm going to find this clip. But essentially, Stephanie Rule's like, this has never happened before. This is brand new with the Trump administration, right? And she's like, wrong. And she's like, oh, I'm wrong. She's like, yes, this has been going on for 20 years. They've been separating children. And she even mentions the Flores decision. And she said this has been going on for 20 years and even longer. And I think that, and we can get into this, I think part of the reason and you can sit here and tell me that it's never happened. I don't know how you know that. How do you know that?
That it's never happened. That okay.
I
So
know that it has, and I can cite things, but I'm just wondering how you know that.
yeah. So when I say it's never happened, I'm talking about these administrations didn't put it as policy that they were going to separate the children. I'm sure within practice. So children have been separated from their families for various reasons. Maybe there was like suspicion of malfeasance from the parents' part, and it took longer than 72 hours for them to sort that out. So they had to separate the child for a little bit until that was sorted out and stuff like that. But it wasn't like under the Trump administration where they come in with their children and it's just immediately we're taking him, we're putting or her, putting them in another facility, and you just got to deal with that.
I mean, you're really like splitting hairs here to say that like it's different when someone else did it, and I don't blame you because the media like hammered so hard that Trump was Hitler, literally Hitler, and he had kids in concentration camps, and that's like burned into people's brains. And but I'm telling you, man, like it wasn't as if Trump was like, ha ha ha, I'm gonna put these kids, I'm gonna separate them from their parents. It's literally like Trump wanted to process every illegal apprehension through the system, period. It wasn't about like separate. I know later they were like, oh, well, this could be used as a deterrent. I understand that. That did happen. Steve Miller, maybe, I think, said that. But initially, at least, it was happening because that was just the process. If the parents were going to be held longer than 72 hours, the children had to be separated. So, and I had another point to that. Yeah, I had another point there, but I forgot. But essentially what I'm saying is like, this has been going on for so long, and it really has to do with the law and the fact that the Flores decision said that they had to be separated. So, in the whole narrative against Trump started with the Obama administration. I know you already said that you're not defending them, and I understand that. But part, I think, of why, and I'm not even like defending Trump because I don't think that they handled it totally right. I'm not saying that even, but I don't think that Trump deserves like the blame that he's getting. And I predicted this also, by the way, and a lot of this stuff is predictable. because it wasn't a scandal under Obama. And you know what's funny? I went and I don't want to talk forever here. I'm sorry if I'm going too long, but I found articles. I went through and I found articles that were written under the Obama administration about uh, overfilled detention centers and everything, and bad conditions, which include pictures of kids in cages laying on the floor. Those articles, many of them, especially NPR, don't ever even mention Obama's name. And I actually reached out to these journalists to ask them, why did you do this story and Obama's name doesn't even show up? And they're like, oh, well, and in the case, those stories had to do with a lawsuit. And they're like, oh, well, Obama's name wasn't mentioned in that. But it's like, that's a shit excuse because they're his detention centers. And so I guess my point is that maybe you think it was so much worse under Trump purely because of media propaganda.
Okay, so
unless you can prove to me otherwise. I don't know that this wasn't happening under Obama or Clinton or Bush.
Okay, so I think that this makes Trump more culpable because of his zero tolerance policy. And the line of logic that I would use to defend that would be it would go like this. Trump wants to prosecute every illegal border crossing that comes from south of the border. In order for him to do that, he is going to have to, by policy, separate children from their families and lock them up in detention centers until processing of their until the court, right? So,
correct.
I, as a president, or I wouldn't want my president to make the calculation that prosecuting every single border crossing is worth the turmoil that you are putting these families through. That's why I don't. That's why I put more blame on Trump. Okay. Now I will give you a couple of things. If it does come out to the case that that Obama was doing this in a much more egregious way than what I am under the impression that he would, I will wholeheartedly agree that is just as bad. I am under the impression right now that while what Obama did was bad, it's not the way I would want things happening at the border. It is still not as bad as Trump because of that zero tolerance and the fact that Trump got rid of catch and release, which allowed a lot of people to not be separated under other administrations.
I'll just say that past presidents were basically just ignoring immigration law to be compassionate and get favorable media coverage. Or you could say compassionate because, like, with Bush, they called it compassionate conservatism, if you remember. And then Obama, and essentially what that meant is that they were just ignoring federal immigration law. And then Trump comes in, he's like, no, I'm going to enforce immigration law. So it's like, if you have a problem with that immigration law, then change the law through the usual means. Like, don't blame Trump. I mean, Trump gets a bad, and it's funny how much of that was bolstered with like misquotes and shit by the media, purposeful misquotes. Like, he called Mexicans rapists and all that, when in fact, I'm not saying he's an eloquent guy, but he didn't say that. He said that, like, some illegal immigrants are rapists and murderers. Like, at no way did he say it was, all Mexicans. But they use misquotes like that and repeat it over and over to bolster this idea. I would just say, like, you say that it wasn't going on as much, or as far as it wasn't going on as badly under Obama. And as far as children at the border,
wait, hold on. It wasn't going on as badly, and it wasn't going on for the same reasons. But go ahead.
Well, you're right, because Obama he was ignoring federal immigration law.
Yeah. Okay.
Right. So, I mean, is that cool to do? I mean, just ignore laws because you don't want to enforce them as president?
Well, if they are, I think that the executive branch has the what is the authority to kind of pick how you enforce laws, because I mean, if you didn't, then like cops would have to do things to people every single time they found somebody on with marijuana, lock them up. Like you want the executive branch to discretion. Thank you. You want the executive branch to have this kind of discretion, right? Or else there would be all kinds of egregious things happening from the executive. Yeah.
Okay, so I guess where I would agree with you, that's why I say we probably won't have too big of a debate on this, is that Trump could have handled it better, and kids were, and which none of us want kids. I mean, I have kids of my own, and I think most people are not insane psychopaths and don't want kids, being treated badly or any of that. But I think here's the thing, and I had another point that I'm already forgetting because I'm getting on to another point, but like a lot of people, the way they feel is that we didn't ask these kids to come here. We didn't ask these parents to send these kids as huge armies across our, huge mobs across our borders. And Trump had actually really slowed that down. A lot of people weren't coming, but then Joe Biden gets in, and suddenly we're getting flooded again because he basically put out, "Come on in, come on in," which I think is weird because we're just getting out of coronavirus. We're just gonna like bring all these people in and send them off on their way, and hopefully they do the testing, but I know that's up in the air. I don't think we're gonna have too much of debate on that stuff. I don't like, for example, let me give you an example. Obama separated, as far as separation, and I mentioned this earlier, not at the border. This is not at the border, but as far as deportations go, he separated tens and tens of thousands of families. Like, I want to say, I don't remember exactly, but I want to say it's around 60 or 70,000 kids or families separated from their children. Now those kids went into like foster care and things like that, but there seemed to be a lot of emotional emphasis put on this separation part of this. And I guess my point is that was never a big story. That was never a scandal. Nobody hates Obama for separating children from their family there. They don't hate Obama for keeping the kids in the cages. And my problem in all of this is that, and I mentioned it earlier during the introduction, that I have a real problem with how these standards are enforced.
Mhm.
Do you know what I mean by that?
So I think that you should spend a little bit more time on my wing of the left because we are extremely hard on Obama for the maybe not the mainstream, and I'm sure I can go online and find stories about this, but my flavor of left is extremely hard on Obama for how he handled immigration. The porter in chief was one thing that he is used against him a lot. Um,
Yeah, he's like a revered godly human on earth. I mean, come on. There's no backlash for any of that. In fact, they say he's scandal. That's everywhere. Do a Google search right now for Obama scandal free. And you got to know that's not true. And that's what I mean. You can sit here and tell me that like you're on the internet with some people who don't like Obama. The problem is the mass media and all these institutions are controlled by the left now. And I know people are going to argue over what's the left and all that, but let's say Democrat Party, let's just say Democrat Party, that's who they're controlled by. Our media, we have Democrat state media. Literally like everything they accuse Republicans and the right and everything, conservatives of, they're guilty of. And that's why this issue for me is such an important one, because it's a great example. It's a great they say a teachable moment. It's a very teachable moment, because what do you see now with Biden? Now I've noticed it's kind of starting to fray a little bit, but you got Psaki up there saying, "Oh, well, they're holding him in containers." It's what we always figure. There's a saying I always say: it's different when Democrats do it, and because there always seems to be this rationalization. And I get what you're saying. You're saying that you guys are not acting that way, and you do hold these guys. That's all well and good, but the mass media, Hollywood, academia, big tech, all these are controlled by people who don't see it your way. They are hardcore bubble Democrat left wingers, and they have no problems holding. The right will have standards and fall short, and they'll attack them for that. But the left, like, seems like maybe you guys have standards, but the mainstream left or whatever, they only have like standards that they take in the moment for political expediency, and then the second that it's damaging to them, the rules change. Anyway, sorry, I was on a soapbox there for a minute.
So it sounds like we're leaving the actual issue of immigration. So do you want to kind of go over where we left at, and if we want to talk about something else, we can do that.
Yeah. Sorry, I kind of got off there. I guess I still don't know how it was so much worse under Trump. I mean, Trump did sign that executive order ending the Flores decision, correct? Ending child separation. Didn't that happen?
Okay, so I'm not exactly sure what that executive order said. I do know that or I am fairly sure that whatever executive order he signed in order, because he did end child separation, it was in order. It was because he was court ordered to. I'm fairly
Um,
sure that was the case.
you know what's funny here is I'm reading this article. Biden pledged to sign executive order about separated migrant children and hasn't, which is I just find funny because I know that Trump did sign that. I think that they still ran into issues though with detaining parents, and not just parents, but just adults who claim to be parents but may not be. I guess my point is that when it comes to like this illegal immigration, all this stuff, it's so the waters are so muddy, and I think to be like, oh, Trump was so much worse, he was so horrible. I just feel like it's propaganda. I don't buy it. I understand that there were some kids. I want to say 1,200 around they were actually lost their parents, but I'm pretty sure they found all of them at this point. I'm pretty sure, or a long time ago, they had relocated all of them.
Maybe. So yeah, so Trump. So let's just go over. I'm gonna go over my perspective of this. So Trump
All right,
comes
go
into
for it.
office. He decides not to use his executive discretion when it comes to immigration, and
Well, I will
wants.
just say he wasn't put into office to do that. He was put into office to stop it. I'm just saying that's what he
Okay,
was
I
voted in
mean,
to do.
whether that's the case or not, I still don't like it. You know. Um,
Yeah, that's fine. I mean, we're not going to agree on that, and I don't like it either. I wish it didn't happen, but I wish that they wouldn't come here illegally. So,
okay. So
let's talk about that. You
well,
want to talk about that?
yeah, yeah, of course, but let's
Okay.
go continue with let's kind of wrap this one up with a neat bow.
Okay.
I'm just gonna give like I'm not. You can push back if you want, but I'm gonna give my take, and if you don't push back, I'm just gonna give my take. You can give your take, and then we just leave it at that.
Yep. Go for
Um,
it.
so yeah, so Trump comes in. He decides not to use his executive discretion to when it comes to uh, prosecuting people who cross the border illegally. Um, he gets rid of catch and release, which is way bigger than what people make it out to be. And what ends up happening as a result is he has to separate the children from the parents because of the Flores decision that says that children cannot be detained for 72 longer than 72 hours, but he knows that he's going to be detaining the parents for longer than 72 hours, so you have to separate them. Um, the egregious part in that whole situation is not the Flores decision, in my opinion. It is the decision to detain the parents, um, and despite having to separate the
Well,
children.
maybe parents.
Or
Yeah.
yeah, if there's suspicion of like coyotes or whatever, then I'm okay with that because you have to figure that shit out.
Well, that's
Um,
always. I mean, that's always a suspicion, right?
it not. I mean, it can be, but not to the extent that like you have to take weeks to be able to figure this shit out. Anyways,
Yeah. Right.
um,
Right. And in that time, you said how long? 2 weeks?
well, I just said weeks.
Right. It's going to be weeks. So, do you keep those kids with those people while you're doing that?
Yeah, but what I'm saying, so you know that Trump detained a lot of the people that were detained for over 72 hours. They were detained over 72 hours because Trump wanted to detain them until their court hearing, right? Like that. That's
Or to figure out child trafficking was definitely part of it. I mean,
yeah,
they
yeah. I mean,
explain it. All right.
that was a part of every administration.
Right.
Which is why it doesn't really get attention. But the whole keeping the parents until the court date was a big part of why he had to keep the parents in prison until for longer than 72 hours, thus um
Well, I mean, you
requiring
said
him to
yourself, you
separate it.
admitted Yeah, but you admitted that it probably takes weeks to figure that out.
No,
And
no,
so
no.
like
I said it shouldn't. Like it shouldn't take weeks.
really?
Yeah,
To figure out who these kids' parents are, these like random kids who come by the thousands across the border?
yeah. I mean, if it
I don't
does,
know,
then
man.
that's an issue that you need to address as commander in chief, which I think is well. I'm not gonna get on that. We can get on that later. Um,
Well,
so so to continue my narrative, Trump responds to a court order to stop separating children by getting rid of the Flores decision, which is what you said. I'm not exactly sure if that was the
I
case.
yeah, I'm not 100% sure about
Okay.
that myself, but yeah, go
But
ahead.
I mean, it sounds, it seems, it logically follows that would be what he would have to do in order to detain the children for 72 hours or longer than 72 hours and keep the children with their parents. Because I do know that after that change, he didn't like bring back catch and release. He didn't get rid of zero tolerance. He did something that allowed him to detain the children with the families.
He kept
Um,
the yeah, I'm reading it right
yeah.
now. It essentially it just kept it went back to the way it was before the Flores decision, which I pointed this out during the hippy dippy thing that the scandal then was that the kids were with the parents.
Well,
So
the scandal for me is that these people are being detained until their court date in the first place, which was which is catch and release. I don't necessarily mind that
so
he's prosecuting people, because like everyone's got to have a court date if they're coming across the border anyways. So, but keeping them detained until their court date is kind of what is a big reason why what led to all of this.
right. That's what I'm saying though. Yeah, but we have immigration laws that he has to enforce. I mean,
Hmm.
the government has very few directives and what they're supposed to do. The government, one of the main things is to protect the borders.
Yeah. So let's just say, I agree with you that the commander in chief should be enforcing every single immigration law on the book. Um, and let's take that out to other laws on the book. If I get caught in a state that doesn't have legalized marijuana with a bag of marijuana, and I get a court date to go to court for this crime, do you think that my children should be taken away from me? Um, after that.
I mean that would all come down, and I'm sure this question does come up. Actually, I don't know about marijuana, but other drugs. I mean, definitely. I doubt that really comes up much with marijuana unless they were like a seller or something, and they're
Well, if
the parents are getting hit with serious. They would separate and put them with family or something. I mean, it's a lot different.
So if I was in a situation like many of these immigrants are in, to where the only people that I have are the people that I came in with, or that and I was being put in jail for marijuana charges instead of let out to be with my kids until the court date. If I was put in jail for these marijuana charges, what would happen to my children? They would be
Well, your
separated from
children
me,
would be
right?
put with family or foster care, but I still don't think that. I mean, that's such a rare. I would think that that's a very rare thing to occur,
Oh
and
yeah, no, I
it's
agree. It is
completely
rare.
different. Like
Well, I don't see it as
the well, look, the in the end, it's so I don't know. I don't like this comparison because for one, the immigration thing is about keeping our borders secured, and the other one is just like random crime. And the decision that you're talking about would come down in a court to prior record. Are these children being taken care of, and those kinds of things. And ultimately, the conclusion to that is not. It doesn't have the same widespread consequences that this does.
so.
And again, like, why are these people coming by the tens of thousands? They weren't during the Trump administration. Why are they coming again? Why is this always happening? Why are we getting hit with these waves of people? That's what I want to talk about.
Okay,
And then we're going to bring in some callers. I got an answer during the hippy dippy thing. I'm wondering what you have to say.
okay. So hold on. I'm gonna finish my statement where I
Yeah,
was
go for
making
it.
the
Yeah.
marijuana comparison. What I would want to see in the marijuana situation is for the family to stay together until the court date, and for a judge to use discretion of whether or not these people are going to go to jail, thus separating the family for over a marijuana charge. It's the same as I would want to see in a illegal immigration, in a legal immigration crossing case. I would want to see these people not being treated like murderers or rapists or whatever would
I don't
actually
think they are, but
okay, whatever would actually qualify for their family to be separated, and I would want to see policies that are going to keep these people together and out of jail as much as possible until their court date, where they are where it's being decided, are they going to be deported or are they going to stay in America? That is what I would
okay.
want to see in an immigration policy.